This is Leafs Morning Take with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill.
Now we've got a fight started here right off the bat with Rosehill.
30 minutes of live, nonstop Leafs talk starts now.
What's good? It's the Tuesday edition here of Leafs Morning Take. Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill breaking down yet another loss, a disappointing loss at that for the Toronto Maple Leafs, 3-1 against the Vegas Golden Knights, a late Monday night. Chandler Stephenson, the winner. Again, if you want to stay interactive on YouTube, your thoughts, your concerns, your questions on the season through 7 games, fire away. We'll get to that later on in the show. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, leave us a review. Visit theleafsnation.com for the very latest happening in Toronto Maple Leafs land. And also coming up in 10 minutes, your former teammate, Colby Armstrong. After what happened on the text chain last night, I could only imagine how this interview is going to go, Rosie. What's going on with you, buddy?
Oh, yeah. Arm dog's always a beauty. Everybody knows that. But not much going on with me. How are you Easterners feeling after a late night watching that team?
Feeling good, feeling great. As you know, I'm always up late, watching hockey. So it doesn't differ for me. But having watched that game, I was just disappointed that I was zoned in on that one and not like Vancouver and Carolina. The Canucks lose again. Where do you want to start with this game before we get over the boards here? Just your initial thoughts on a disappointing loss. Let's not sugarcoat it, right?
Yeah, just frustrating, man. Like I having trouble to pull any redeeming qualities out of that game. You'd think after that big game in Winnipeg, they'd kind of try to follow the same template. And my God, this team is very good at throwing completely different looks from day to day. And I think that's kind of always been their kryptonite. And yeah, frustrating. They didn't have a goddamn thing. And like, what a game to build off to get on this road trip and get rocking. I'm sure they would have stayed overnight and been able to rip it up in Vegas, and great vibes for half a week of practice before going down to California, and just nothing, man. Total frustrating.
It was really, really frustrating. I thought they put a couple great shifts together in the first period, and after that, it was just like, nah, check, please. We're out of here. Let's head off to San Jose for our game on Thursday. All right, let's get over the boards right now. Let's do it. So as mentioned, a 3-1 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights on Monday night. The Maple Leafs now 4-3-0 on the season, 1-1-0 on this 5-game road trip. Your guy, Ilya Samsonov, was excellent. I think that's the one bright spot we can take from this game. I could only wonder where this Maple Leafs team would be without this guy. Like, imagine this went south. Imagine post-Matt Murray injury, Samsonov was letting every shot in. I don't know what the conversation would look like on this show right now, Rosie.
Yeah, it wouldn't be pretty. There's no doubt that he's kind of the only beacon of light after that game. I'm not saying the whole season. There's good things going on in this team, but like, why are they so scared to commit to an identity? Like that game in Winnipeg, the things that they did and the effort they gave and the waves that they brought on that team over and over again, they just overwhelmed them with effort and energy and intensity. And then they show up and it's like they didn't even know they were playing. They're looking around like they're getting peppered. That first 10 minutes of the game, it's like, oh man, we're playing right now, and holy, we're getting shelled. We're supposed to be down in there and taking shots on them. Oh geez, I didn't know we dropped the puck. It was like, what are you guys doing? Like, they must have been shit-faced. They must have gone out the night before in Vegas. The Vegas flu they may have had. I don't know. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. But that effort was brutal. And you just, top to bottom, you just look at everyone and what they were bringing. You could try to turn it around with different types of bump up shifts, and just no one had anything. Saw a thing on Twitter, Pierre Engvall just swooping embarrassingly, like, finish a hit, man. Like, dude, he must be mad that he's as big as he is, because people expect him to play physical, because he has no friggin' interest in playing physical at all. And you think a guy that sat in the press box and got a bit of a wake up call would be chomping at the bit to go out there and raise some hell. And my God, it would, like, the polar opposite, man.
Absolutely no juice. It's like they could have used those IVs. They sell the IVs on the strip in Vegas. It's like you should have had a team IV set up like 3 hours before the game, because there's not much juice. Again, there was a couple strong shifts in the first period. I thought Matthews was humming along. It seemed like he was going to set the shot record on the night. And then after that, it was just crickets. It really, really was disappointing, because I think the Leafs are well positioned to win that game. The front end of a back-to-back for San Jose. Aiden Hill's returning to San Jose on Tuesday. Like, there was every reason why Toronto should have went in there, found a way to win the game, and move on to San Jose, as mentioned, on Thursday. But it just wasn't the case. Mitch Marner played a team-high 26:45. We saw him take a spin late on the back end. Here we go, Rosie.
Yeah, it's funny, man. After a couple of games, I'm like, for a guy that's supposed to play on defense, he's hasn't been playing a lot of defense this year. But it's almost like when he's back there, I think he's kind of got his PP mode going, and he's kind of just focused on getting a goal. And usually at that point in the game, the ice is kind of tilted towards the opposing player's net, just because you're peppering them, and they kind of go into D shutdown mode and try to protect their lead. But it's interesting to see him back there. But I just kind of look at it as a kind of a power play type of look when he does that. I don't really think it's a big playing defense and boxing out and doing switches down low and being all defensive in his own end. They usually just get that thing deep and try to use him up top to get a goal in. But like you said, without Sammy, it could have been 5-1 in a big hurry and been kind of an ugly blowout. But it's their starts, and they're just didn't seem ready to play. So I imagine there'll be some meetings and some video shown this morning.
What an incredible segue to topic number 2, the bad starts. And I've been documenting these. So they scored the first goal in the first 2 games of the season. Ever since, Rosie, 5 in a row. And if there's one thing I remembered from the Mike Babcock era, it was start on time. And certainly this team has not. Maybe it's the Pacific time zone. Maybe they thought the game was in the East yesterday.
Yeah, I know that's definitely a frustrating thing for coaches. You put in all your preparation, you take the time, like all the shit that goes into a game day, and then finally, like, we should be ready. Puck drops, and their just heads are who knows where, right? It's definitely frustrating. And you'd think that, again, to go back to that Winnipeg game, they came off of that, like, let's establish an identity. That's what works for us. No, we're going to kind of half-ass it and kind of float some around and just hopefully just be that high-powered offense. And hopefully our studs will get us 6 goals tonight and we can win 6-4. Like, that's not going to cut it. It's that previous type of play that won you that big game, that had all the momentum, that had everyone fired up about your team. It's that kind of stuff that you build an identity off of and that takes you to the playoffs and wins you series. It's not that shit from last night, man. There's nothing there. You could pick that apart all day, especially a good team. So to come out and start a game like that, you immediately put yourself behind the 8 ball. And like you say, they've been doing that all year and luckily pulling out some wins. But when you're letting in the first goal of every game, you're not going to give yourself very high percentages to win those games. And it shot them in the foot last night. All right.
You're right. It's like they played with hope instead of urgency, right? Like, I really felt for the first time in the early season on Saturday, they played with urgency. They pushed the pace and never really let Winnipeg catch their breath in that game. And that's why I thought it was a gritty 4-1 victory against the Jets. And it was pretty much the opposite last night, where Vegas was forcing play. And to your point about the starts, every period, right? I documented the numbers again. I think it was 5-0, 8-2, 6-0 in terms of shots on goal to begin each period. And I don't know what was said, what was done between the second and third. I think they were sitting in a pretty decent position on the road, Rosie. 1-1 game in Vegas, a tough barn to play in, and you come out just with nothing. No jam, no juice. Eichel had a strong shift. I think it was Brody who broke a stick early on, and it leads to Stephenson's game winner 42 seconds into the third. I was just disappointed from that fact that Toronto was in a good position to win that game and had nothing left for the third period.
Yeah, you're right. Going into the third there, we're thinking, hey, we haven't had a good start, but we might get away with it. Like, Sammy's, stood on his head. There was some shifts there where he was just getting peppered one after another. And, you watch those D-men, I keep seeing number 3 just spinning around, trying to figure out where the hell he's supposed to be. And meanwhile, they're just peppering the Leafs net, and they weather that and they get away with it. And, there's a tie game going into the third period. So you'd expect them to, let's smarten up. We could steal this one. Good teams find a way to win when they don't have their best stuff, and they just didn't do that. And like you say, you're expecting them to come out of that third and just pour the coals to them, and they did the complete opposite. They just stood back and said, oh, what's going to happen here? And they just wait and hope and wait and see what happens. And you just got to empty it and put the hammer down and bury yourself in their end and chase that puck and just want it more. It's like, I hate to say effort, because that's what people yell on Twitter. Oh, they're not trying. Like, what do you mean they're not trying?
Yeah.
But but they're trying to score, but they're just not doing it in the right ways. They're just trying with hoping plays and hoping this seam pass works and hoping this might go in and hoping that I can toe drag this guy. And it's not the kind of stuff that just gets you those gritty wins that you need on the road when you're starting off without your best stuff. And they need to learn that, man, because those are important points and those are how you're going to grind out wins in the playoffs.
I totally get it's 2022. So if you want to go out there, get shit-faced, you're in Sin City, you're in Vegas. I know the recovery mode is a lot different these days than it was 20 years ago, where you just rip a dart after the game and you're ready to go. But play guilty at least, Rosie, right? Like, I don't care what you do behind the scenes, but play guilty. And I just didn't see any guilt level in their game last night. Like, it was slightly concerning. And as you mentioned last week, I'm just trying to temper sort of my gauge and my expectations. It is one of 82. But just the fact of when you watch games like that and know they could have easily won it, but just couldn't bring it, it's worrisome for me.
Yeah, like you said, that's the frustrating part, man. You didn't have your best stuff. Your goalie's keeping you in there. Why not go have like those are the wins that are like they're not the ones you want all the time, but when you can get them and pull 2 points out, or at least get yourself into overtime and maybe grind a point out of it when you don't have your best stuff, like those are always like, hey, at least and you can think of some positives to keep it in there. But when you just say, nah, fuck it, we don't have our best stuff and it's just given away, it's like you got to find ways to win those. So definitely frustrating. I know when you're not on the bench and you're not playing, you're not part of the team, it's definitely frustration because you're sitting there watching going, why aren't you doing this? But to get 20 guys collectively to doing the right things, it's a process, all right. So like you said, there is time, but you got to learn from this shit and you can't keep repeating it. And they've been kind of famous for doing that. So I hope they can find a way to actually nip that in the bud here.
We're still waiting to connect with your old teammate, Colby Armstrong. Hopefully that happens momentarily. But I think Toronto dodged a major bullet last night. John Tavares leaving the game about midway through the third period takes a Rasmus Sandin clapper off the knee. I think that's fortunate news because he's off to a really, really good start. Picked up another point in this game, just skating much better and really bringing some pace and some juice to this lineup, something that may have been missing at points of times last season. So I was impressed with Tavares again. Again, it was just hard to find positives in this game, but I think the fortunate news, it sounds like Tavares is going to be okay because initially the way he went down, the way he came off, I'm like, well, his night's over, right?
Well, it sure looked like that. Like for a guy that's played like 15 years professional hockey, you're a grown man. He's, you know the difference between shattering your kneecap and having, a deep bruise. And the way he acted there is, when you're writhing around in pain, like
Yeah, but
funky chicken it with your face on the ice, I think he shattered his kneecap or like that puck exploded his ACL, like something happened, but he is messed up. And then he gets two grown men to help him get down the tunnel. And then 8 minutes later, all good. I'm back out there to skate. Like I'm teaching my Adam
yeah.
team not to do that. If you're not hurt, get the hell off. Like you got to know the difference. Like when you're laying there, you're like, yeah, that hurts. I'm not saying that didn't hurt. I've taken clappers off, all kinds of body parts that have absolutely no padding on it. It hurts like hell, but I just didn't really, I was kind of surprised to see him be totally fine. I'm sure he's going to have a big bruise and it's going to be sore this morning, but I mean, unless there is something wrong, I wasn't sure why he's laying there doing the funky chicken as if he might be severely hurt. I was worried, and then all of a sudden he's back, and I was like, okay, well, why didn't you get off the ice? But I digress. I guess that's kind of the old school in me. Get the hell off the ice if you're not really hurt. But it's good to see him come back.
It's tough. It's tough to battle with you because you literally like took punches in the face for a career in the league for the most part. You had a couple goals, but you're known for your knuckles and throwing them, right? And I just think you look at that injury specifically, like it looked like a big time stinger. Anybody who's got a stinger out there, it hurts like crazy. And I want to defend him because I think John Tavares has been so great for this team, and I'm not usually there to defend him in terms of his play, but I think he's been excellent this year. And I understand what you're saying, but I think in the moment that could hurt like hell. So I was just happy to see him back, quite frankly. Austin Matthews, 5 shots on goal in the game, 1 on 33 to start the season. He had a glorious, glorious opportunity there in the first period. I guess you give some credit to Logan Thompson, but for the first time in a long, long time, Matthews, I think, is really, really fighting it. Having said that, am I concerned? Hell no, Rosie. Are you?
Yeah, no, it's just one of those things, he doesn't have the greatest starts in the world. Like some guys are like that. Some guys just kind of ease into it It's not like he's planning on doing that, or that was his that was his motive going into the season. But a guy's snake bitten when he's that good, and he's kind of getting that one big chance every game that just he fanned on one the other night, that chance yesterday. Usually he's burying those, and when they're just not going in, it starts to build and it starts to build. And I mean, you can call it a slump, and it kind of is for a guy like him. He's not used to not scoring for this long. Like you said, his shot percentage is like abysmal, and that's not like him. And no, I'm not freaking out about him. No, I'm not really worried, but every game that goes by, we're like, okay, anytime, Austin. And I'm sure he's thinking the same thing. And every game that comes along, we have been thinking this is going to be his time to get that monkey off his back. And again, I just think most likely it will happen again here in San Jose. So not to worry, but it would be nice if he started rolling, because he certainly can help this team. If he had his best stuff last night, good chance he gets one and they get into overtime or win that game. And if he's not on, it's certainly harder to win games for that team.
What was the response to my tweet yesterday when I said he had 1 goal on 33 shots? What was your response?
Oh, I was like, that's like my 6-year-old shooting percentage against me in the basement, mini sticks, man. I'm a wall, and he has trouble and gets pissed off. But I got my record.
Like 7 feet tall, though.
Yeah, we use these tiny little warrior nets too, but I'm not letting it in if I have to, because when he wins, he acts like a dick. So I don't know. He's not going to be on that shooting percentage for forever. What was his shooting percentage, I'm wondering, last year when he was just scoring everything? It's probably miles away from what it is right now, obviously, but he's got the ability to turn it around right away. And, I think he's the kind of guy who would turn it around in high fashion by getting a hat trick or something here soon. So, that's all we can do is hope that he does that. He's got the ability.
All right, are you ready? We're finally readily and steadily available for showtime here. Let's bring in today's guest, a former Leaf, current media member with Sportsnet, covers the Pens on TV and radio. We have Colby Armstrong coming up here in mere moments. I guess doesn't know what 11:10 a.m. start for an interview is. I guess not. Eh?
Holy arm dog! Did Melanie forgot to wake you up, or what's going on? Do you handle yourself with all your engagements like this? This is East Coast League stuff, buddy.
Oh, wow. Look, so we got his screen and just nothing. Oh, here he comes.
Between two ferns.
This is incredible. Hey, so Army, thanks for doing this. I just texted you, did you play for Mike Babcock? I couldn't remember. And the reason why I asked that, because the one thing he hammered home all the time was arrive on time, stay on time, be on time. And are you on time for this interview? We don't have your microphone just yet. Okay. We're going to try to get you dialed in.
I think those Apple earphones that you got with your phone have a mic on, and they're throwing everything off here, Brewster.
All right. We'll get Colby off the screen. We'll try to get him back on here, Alex. I know it's difficult as I host this, trying to produce the show as well, but certainly we're going to hope to connect here with Colby. If not, we'll try to do it another time. Obviously, we're a bit pressed for time here with about 15 minutes or so left in the show, but I think you look at Matthews specifically, he's going to find his groove here. Like there's no doubt about it in my world. I think when you look at Matthews and the body of work, which he's presented the last couple of years, it's only a matter of time. And I think the positive I'll grab from last night was the fact that he was humming along offensively in terms of his shot, finding his shot and the strength of his shot. Like he wasn't laboring as much as he was, say, against Winnipeg in terms of the injury he sort of suffered back against Dallas last Thursday, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. He looked better. He's just a bit snake bitten right now. It happens to guys, and the more high profile of a player you are, and the more talented you are, and the more used to scoring you are, the more predominant that slump is. People are paying attention. People are asking why, and that team does rely on him to do that kind of thing. So obviously, everyone's kind of waiting for him to get rocking, and it's tough because you certainly don't want to say anything to a guy like that. He knows what's going on. He knows he should be scoring, and you just got to give him the time and space to do it, and keep setting him up and letting him do his thing. Because it's we're probably gonna talk at Christmas time about, remember when he couldn't buy a goal at the beginning of the season, and probably be laughing at that because he's gonna be put himself on fire and get right up to the league lead again like he tends to do. So not worried about him. I'm more worried about some of the breakdowns defensively, the turnovers, the blocked shots aren't happening. No one's hitting. It's just like, you want to win a game, guys. You got to establish that identity, and they're just not doing that. And when they show up and bad seems to get to worse one shift after another, when you think they're going to cut that shit off and have a big bump up shift and find their way and find a groove, and it just doesn't happen. And, I've mentioned Engvall and I've mentioned Hall. It just seems like we're just seeing too much of them. It seems like Hall plays a lot in key situations, end of the period, bump up shifts, some big time minutes that need to be solid. And in my mind, he's the least reliable defensive player on that decor. Yet I constantly see him out there spinning around trying to figure out where the hell he's supposed to go and what he's supposed to do with it. So that's a little frustrating with the key ice time that he gets in certain situations, when I tend to think that he's, more often than not making mistakes out there. So I'd like to see someone step up and kind of take those minutes and be able to do it. I've been a big fan of Gio this year. Like, for $800,000, you go out and you take $800,000 and you try to get someone for that. And we've got Mark Giordano for that. I mean, wasn't even that long. You can count on one hand how many years ago he won a Norris Trophy, 1,000 games. Rock solid out there. He's in position. Is he going to win the Norris again? No. And that's, everyone knocks him. Oh, his Norris days are behind him. Well, no shit. He makes $800,000. Try to replace him. I dare you. You can't replace him for like double that. So I like to see him out there. He seems to be solid for me. And I know he's not the Norris winning defenseman that he was a few years back, but we're paying him nothing to do a lot, and I think he's quite reliable back there. And I think he needs to, lead the way with some of these guys who are a little bit less reliable so far.
Hello.
Oh, I believe we do finally have Colby Armstrong. I believe it's his first time trying to work some technology. What's going on, Colby?
I'm used to having people do this stuff for me. Okay. Rosie, you know what I'm talking about, a cement head like yourself trying to manage a computer.
Did Melly Poo come and plug in your computer for you there, bud?
No, she's on a call right now. Left me completely hanging to figure this out on my own. It isn't ideal. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if my internet good enough. I have no clue.
It's okay.
Your media career is headed straight down the toilet after that performance.
Yeah, we offered to have Army on the show today to really rise your career up, because again, you're one of the very first guests here on this show, and you shit the bed, man. We'll be quite honest about it. I talked about starting. I talked about starting on time. The Maple Leafs. Any concern first and foremost with Austin Matthews? 1 goal in 7 games to start the season.
Yeah, I think it's a little concerning. I think you'd obviously expect and want more. Sorry for being late. Yeah, starting on time is not great. But I don't know. I think the players like that, like I always go back to players like that. When I played with Ilya Kovalchuk, I used to ask him, I used to say, hey, buddy, like, do you ever get like panicked if you don't score for like 3 or 4 games? Like, what's your like mental anxiety level at? Because I was a complete lunatic. And he's like, no, man, I can get 3 goals next game. And I'm like, yeah, you could. That's actually true. What a great way to live your life as a hockey player, instead of stressing all the time. So I think with him, and we've seen him go on, look at last year, what do you have, 50 goals in 50 games pretty much at the second half of the season. Like it's a guy that can just get hot and absolutely light it up. So it's concerning, the start, because I think it's hurting them a bit not having those guys be those guys. But at the same time, I think he's the kind of guy that can get hot and then remain hot and put up massive numbers.
In general, you look at this team, and Rosie, we'll get to a couple of your questions, don't doubt it, in a second, because you are former teammates, and we got some stories to share here on Leafs Morning Take.
Oh, good God.
But what's your scope of this Maple Leafs team so far this season? Like, what leads you to believe that it's going to be any different, the ending to this outcome and to this story?
I don't know. What would it be? I mean, we're seeing the same plan. We're seeing the same plan shoveled out there again this year. And they have elite talent and good skill, and they keep trying to find, like, with the cap situation and other areas. And, Nick Robertson's a cool story the other day, but it's like they keep trying to plug and place depth, toughness, I guess. And they play a certain style and brand of hockey as well that I don't think lends itself to those guys' games being necessarily easier to play. And I just think it's the same old model. So, what are we going to see that's going to be different other than can they just get it done? Because they're sticking with it. This is the idea of how they're going to play. This is the makeup of their lineup. I heard Rosie when I was scrambling at my stuff talking about, finishing checks and not hitting. Like that's not even in their wheelhouse to even be a team that plays that way. So, yeah, I just think I think it's up to them if they can get over the hump. Like, have they had good enough teams? Yeah, they have. They've had electric, awesome teams, but getting into the playoffs and facing some of these teams that are built differently and can withstand a 7-game series with the way they are has been a whole nother question.
Well,
Rosie,
Army, so
fire away, my man.
you've played for that organization. You've played for quite a few different organizations, some really high market ones, some lower. So like you say, they've had the teams to build. They're the same old model, the same old shit happens all the time. Being as you've played there and had pressure on you, I mean, from the time we played there, say 12 years ago, it's there's not a single person there that's the same type of clientele. Yeah. The GMs have changed, the coaches have changed, the stars have changed, the goalies have changed. Everyone's gone, but for 20 some years they cannot win a playoff series. The only thing that stays constant is that market. Tell us what you thought about playing there and how much that plays into it and what that does to a team like psychologically.
Well, I've shared this on other interviews or podcasts or whatever. I always feel, and Rosie, I'd be curious to see if you feel the same way just because you were there, is I kind of feel like in the market, like the attention and like the feeling is just because type of thing, because of the logo and because of the team and the popularity and whether it's media or just fandom. I think those are kind of linked also, but I kind of feel like when things are bad, it's crazy. And then when things are good, the general forces that be kind of can't wait for it to go bad. And you can feel that. I kind of feel like you can feel that. So it's a totally different beast, I think, playing for the Leafs and in Toronto. And I always admired guys that like succeeded there, did so well there, or could handle it, or, knew how to, overcome harder times and deal in it. Like look at Darcy Tucker as a Leaf, like, for example. Like, he was a guy that played a certain brand of hockey, could play with good players, put up points, played a tough, robust game, and guy's a hard ass completely. But, he's a guy that like thrived in that market and in that energy. And I admire guys because it's not easy, for sure. It's not easy. But I think the general thing is like you could always get a sense when and then it's just like, oh, but you wait, these wheels are going to fall off. And when it does, and it's like, they're just waiting for something to happen, whether it's the fans or the media. So it's like, it's always one extreme to the other extreme.
Yeah, 100%. The highs are too high, the lows are too low. And I remember walking into that MasterCard Center for practice. It's now the Ford Center, I think. And you could just, it was palpable. Either after a loss, you're walking on absolute eggshells, like, oh God. And then if you're winning, you can just hear the little whispers like, well, this can't possibly last with the depth they have, or well, this goalie's playing out his ass, or well, this isn't sustainable. And it's just, they're just waiting to tear you down. And it's like, you can't fricking win in that city because it's just so much different, where the guys in Florida or Tampa just cruise in with their flip-flops, wheel around and loop and shoot, and then go hit the fucking golf course. And it's just nice for them, right? It's a totally different beast.
Yeah, and it's like looking at Gaudreau, I think, to a certain extent, right? He like out of nowhere goes to Columbus, and you're kind of going, maybe he's got it all figured out.
I think that guy needed to be close to mommy, though. COVID hit him hard. He didn't see his mommy enough that year, so he needed.
Yeah, but that's the joke. Columbus isn't even home for him. It's nowhere fucking close to where he like. It's I don't know. I never understood that signing.
It's a quicker flight.
Yeah. So, Army, you've been jock sniffing the last couple of years, certainly during COVID, hanging around with the dudes, the boys, Matthews, your boys now. You're in Vegas, you're in Sin City. How different are these guys from back in the day when you're riding Crosby's coattails in the NHL?
That is true. This is true.
Look at the tail of tape here.
Rosie. Yeah. Rosie, I can't believe
you got more Tims than me. Playing as soft as you did. That's 5.5 goals, by the way. 5.5 goals. I had one disallowed. You got to fix that, Alex. Jesus.
Yeah, I don't know. I go back to the players thing. It's kind of cool since I moved over there was during COVID. So a lot of the stuff I did was like this. So it has been, pretty awesome to be face to face now again, and to be able to do, the job actually correctly. I would say, I always say this in regards to like this kind of stuff is I have no fucking idea what I'm doing, but I know exactly what I'm doing. That's the secret to my success. Rosie probably has the same thing going. You might want to steal that one, Rosie, but
It's working for you, buddy.
It's been interesting. Thanks, buddy. It's been interesting. It's been fun. It's been different. It's cool to be out of a studio and be face to face and actually do some of these different things, and rubbing shoulders with the stars of the league now and being able to talk to them. And I think probably my favorite thing is like leading up to an interview, just when they first come in and just shooting the shit like regular dudes and talking before we sit down and get it going. And yeah, you're right. Me and Austin are pretty tight. I think I'm going to grow a mustache now and get into high fashion apparel. Yeah,
like,
I get
it. What does Matthews like talk about? Like he walks in the room, is he like, "Oh, I was out last night. You should have seen what it was after." Like, is that the way? Like, what's he breaking down?
Well, no,
the game's just so much different.
In Vegas, he came in with his agent Judd, and Judd is a guy I knew for a long time. He used to work with Crosby and then switched over now as a super agent of his own, and a great guy. And so it was funny seeing those two walk in, because my connection for a long time known Judd, and not Matthews, not at all. So it was a good like kind of in between with those two guys, just striking up regular conversation just about the season and health and Vegas, what's going on in Vegas, and just like regular small talk stuff, nothing crazy. Like, although I might have to hit his agent up for his number so we can stay connected. That's the move to do, right? I think
I don't even know.
Hey, bud, what's going on? Hey, bud.
Remember
you
me?
Would be that super fan guy. Yeah, you'd be. I played a couple games for the Atlanta Thrashers. That's what your line would be. But like, having been out with you, I don't think you're the first guy I'm calling to. Hey, I'm in Vegas. You want to go out with me? You're tucked away by 10 with milk and cookies.
Oh, I love it now. I'm just a fat dad, just trying to grind away day to day, just Uber driving my kids around like to every excursion and event, and fake like I work hard at this job. What? I'm giving away all the secrets.
Rosie, you got one more before we wrap this?
You heard it here first.
Hey, Rosie, you got another one?
Yeah, not really, man. Just impressed that you had that career you had. I actually wonder, like, when you're interviewing these young stars and stuff like that, like we were watching some hits that you had here early in your career, and I mean that's old. So look at this, Bowango. That's just Brent Sutter, and so you're so terrified to get benched that you're just killing guys, just implanting CTE to stay in the lineup. Kablango. But these new kids have They've never done that. They've never seen that. They've never even knew that existed. And then you got to go interview. Do you notice a big difference in some of these millennials and some of these young kids that you get hooked up with to hang around? Is there a big difference in that league?
That was a bad one. I almost quit hockey after that Letowski one. I felt so disgusted about it. It just was like, that was kind of, I think, it was horrible. It was horrible. The rink was dead quiet. He was seriously injured. I talked to him after. No, when their face drags across the ice in unconsciousness,
Saku Koivu, are you serious?
Yeah, well, this is the game that isn't played anymore. Like, this is what it is. So,
suck it,
a guy on their team, I think it was Lapierre, was giving it to Sid, and I told him, I said, lay off of them off face-offs, lay off of them, or I'll go after one of your guys. And he was like still doing it, like his job, right? Max Lapierre was, kind of a guy that provided that role for the teams he was on through his career. Shit disturber. He was good at it. He was really good at it. Yeah. And he and I warned him as he was giving Crosby the stick off a draw one time. And then like literally 2 shifts later that happened. And I was just like, I did pay the price after. Sheldon Surrey grabbed me and absolutely welded me like 5 bombs. But, yeah, you know what? When I was in the minors, I played 3.5 years in the minors. One of the years was a lockout year, but I had the ability. I always say this now too, just with the game in general and guys, and I had that chip in my pile, like of all the chips you have of what your game is. I had that chip, and some guys don't have it. Rosie had a bigger one, But I was able to use that, you know, and I decided like, hey, listen, if I'm going to play in the NHL, I've got to maybe play a little bit more of a reckless game and be a little bit more different with my game that way. So I could play and be involved with my regular playing style, but I also had this like antagonist kind of like grinder rat chip that I could throw in every once in a while to spice the pot up. So, and we see that now. Like how often is there a guy like that on any team? You know, like the Penguins just played Brendan Lemieux. He gave, you know, Gensel, like a star player, a pretty good hit, and he was mixed up with Jari in the crease, and you know he's a rat, right? But like, you know, to find guys like that want to do that. And I don't get like if you're like a guy in the minors or your fourth line guy or your guy that's on a bubble and you're like looking at the lineup and you're like, okay, where do I fit? Okay, well they don't have anyone that does this. Like, why don't I do that and make 2.5 sheets a year and just be a guy that does that and get my 8 goals a season and maybe my body won't hold up and I'll last 6 years, but you know I played and I made okay money and I was like a unicorn.
Hey, what did you think of Biz?
Summed up your career, Armbruster. You summed it up, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks.
What did you think of Biz on the big screen at the game, just ripping on Sid? I love that shit, man.
Oh my god, that was like, I don't think that's ever been done at like
No.
any sporting event. At any sporting event, it was pretty wild. But I was literally, I think I was like this when they were I was looking through like my eyes, like my fingers, like this, covering my face, like, oh no, what's gonna happen? What's going on? This has never been done before. What the hell is this? I think it helps that they both know him like decent enough to like do that, but I mean, it helped too that he had a goal and assist and they were up 3 Cobb on Arizona to begin with. But oh my God, Rosie, oh, this is sick. Rosie, you're the king at like. Rosie, you are the king at losing your grip and then re-engaging. I'll never forget, and you can go find it, maybe you can pull it up, is your Lucic fight in Boston. I was on the ice for it too when you guys squared up to fight, throwing like decent fight, then separated as we just saw, then like 50, they were like both like this, like
like 50s style boxing.
And then they were like jabbing. And the crowd, it was in Boston, the crowd went absolutely haywire, and I was like standing there. I am right there. The linesman's holding. There
it is.
Is that me down there? Yeah, that's me down in the corner there. They kind of get separated here, and obviously Lucic, 1,100 games the other night, and he's had a great career as you know.
Well, I remember going to this game.
Chips.
Someone on the Bird was showing me a YouTube video of Lucic like boxing with full boxing shit on and like Junior Olympics and doing. I think
he's gold gloves or something. Yeah.
Yeah, his Golden Gloves boxer, and then so we spin off and his jersey rips off here. I think it falls on the ground, and then he just goes into his boxing stance, and I'm like, this guy boxes. I've never had boxing gloves on in my life.
I was standing there watching, going, "Oh, here we go! Look at this! Watch this! Look at Lucic.
Look
at his boxing stance. I'm like, what is? I don't know what I'm doing."
You're like just trying to survive right now. The building was going here, though. It was absolutely electric. I give it to you, Rosie. You were one tough customer. You weren't afraid to go toe to toe, and all that stuff was wild. So great teammate, also.
All I can say is Rosie's coming down to Toronto in January, and I'm happy he's on my team because we're gonna rip it down King West, if you know what I'm saying, and nobody's gonna touch us.
Maybe Felipe will let you out of the barn and let you have a night with us there, Armbruster.
Might have to get up
don't
to
even
the
ask.
T-dot.
No, that's his classic line. Might. It's always might. Yeah, could happen. You know, it never happens. No.
You're lost soul in my world.
You're lost soul in my world. Colby, you're the best. Next time, if you could show up one time, we can have you for a bit longer. But I appreciate the time, man. Keep killing it, okay?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry for being technically challenged with that stuff. And boys, congrats on the show. Love it. Love that Rosie's in the mix with you, Nick. Good job.
Same, Brewster. Thanks, buddy.
See you, boys.
The incomparable Colby Armstrong. The guy's the absolute best. I'm jealous you got to play hockey with him and not only play with him, but be a teammate. I was a teammate with him at Sportsnet. He's salt of the earth, isn't he?
Oh man, playing with him was awesome. I was his roommate on the road. The shit that comes out of his mouth and the little quirks he has are just hilarious. He's nonstop, but I don't think you could find a guy that has played with him that didn't love being his teammate. So you can see it right there. I love the way he played. love the way he acted and handled himself, and he just brought a good smile to everyone's face no matter what was going on. So solid guy. That's why he's kicking ass in media right now, and everyone wants a piece of him. So good for him, man. It's good to see.
I just love all the quotes he gave us for social too. I'm gonna have like 17 fucking different clips uploaded in the next couple hours because he brought some gold here to the show. The wrap up is brought to you by our friends at PointsBet Canada. I took the L, Rosie. I took the L. The Austin Matthews anytime goal. I can't believe it. 2 games in a row it did not hit. The Leafs not in action on Tuesday. I'm going to go to La Belle Province. Marc-Andre Fleury confirmed as a starter for the Montreal Canadiens. Minnesota really, really struggling. They're 1-3-1. Give me the Wild puck line. So over a goal and a half to win by over a goal and a half at plus 130 right now on PointsBet Canada. I just think Minnesota is due, and I think they're a far superior team than the Montreal Canadiens are. Not to mention Marc-Andre Fleury is a Quebec native. How do you like that look tonight?
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I love the plus money, and if you think a team's going to win, you got to think, if you want to sprinkle it a little heavier and a little riskier, why not do the spread? So, I love sitting there at the end of the game waiting for those empty netters, and one guy just cruises in, and you just go cha-ching. So why not? We'll get off the Matthews train. He has been letting us down, but I have a feeling the time we don't go to that is when he's gonna tuck. But nonetheless, you got to mix it up sometimes. I don't mind the Wild tonight at all.
And if you're a coward, just go Wild in the money line. I do think they win tonight. Marc-Andre Fleury always seems to play his best in Quebec, his native area, of course, and where he was born near Montreal there. So the Wild puck line is what we like tonight. That's going to do it. Again, we apologize for the technical issues we had with Colby Armstrong. Again, it's more so Colby. He's just a fucking tool bag. But we hope he brings it next time. We brought it today. At the very least, Rosie, we brought it on today's show, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, I got my stuff figured out on my end. I get up early enough to take care of those things. I guess professionalism doesn't really land with that guy, as we all know by his. Remember his celebration where he went like this with that stick with holes in it in an NHL game? My God, he owes us one. He'll have to come back on.
Oh, yeah, that was awesome stuff, though. So we thank Colby Armstrong for hopping on. Don't forget to subscribe, smash that like button, leave us a review. That's Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. We'll be back on Wednesday for Leafs Morning Take. Take care.